This happened back when I was in college. During the summers, the first lived back home with my parents at their house. I had almost the entire basement to myself, and they wouldn't really go down there much. When I was gone, there was a big TV down there and then my bedroom and a bathroom. It was really nice to have all that space. I drove home from school after I had finished my finals and packed up my stuff from the college dorm. When I arrived back at my parents' house, they happened to be gone. They told me that they would be back in a few hours and were out for the night. That meant that I would be home alone. I did have my own house key, so when I got back I was able to get inside. I spent the first bit of time unpacking a bunch of my stuff and putting some of it into storage. And in the basement. I went down into the basement and I stayed in the main room and was using the TV for a while. It was then that I thought I heard a noise coming from inside of my bedroom. I hadn't been in there yet and the door was closed. I didn't know what it could be, but I wasn't scared or anything like that. I casually got up and walked over to the door, then I opened it. When I did, I heard the sound of my closet door closing. It was kind of out of my view, and when I looked over to it, the door was completely shut. Suddenly, I was now a little bit concerned about what this could be. Only a person could close the door like that, and I was home all by myself. I thought about going over and opening the closet door, but decided not to. I turned around and walked out of the room instead. I no longer wanted to be downstairs, and I went up into the living room upstairs. As I was up there, probably 30 minutes went by without anything happening. I was just watching TV and relaxing on the couch. Out of nowhere, I heard the sound of somebody walking up the staircase. I knew that it wasn't my parents because they weren't home yet. I looked over to the stairs. The person was not in my view yet, but I kept looking. Then I saw a man start to come into view and he was walking up the stairs towards me. This guy looked a little bit older than me, but had a beard and long hair. He looked like he had to be on some kind of drug or something. As he approached me, I quickly got up. I backed away and asked him who he was. The guy didn't say anything. He just kept walking closer. I told him that he needed to get out of here or I was going to call the police. The guy didn't say anything though, and kept getting closer and closer to me. I was backed up as much as I could and would soon reach the wall. He continued to approach me. I then ran to the side and was now in the back corner of the house. The guy kept coming near me. Then he started to charge at me. This guy had to be insane when he lunged for me. I jumped out of the way. He caught part of my leg and I fell to the ground. The man fell also. I was able to get to my feet before he did, and I ran to the staircase and went down the stairs as quickly as possible. When I made it to the bottom, I opened the door and left the house. The crazy guy did the same, but a little bit after me, I went sprinting down the neighborhood street yelling at the guy to get away from me. He stopped chasing me eventually and kind of wandered off into somebody else's yard. Then I was finally able to compose myself and call 911. When the police got to my street, I didn't know where the guy was anymore. I had walked back to our house and was standing in the front yard. The guy ended up being found about 15 minutes later. I guess he went and hid in somebody's backyard and they saw him and called the police. The police happened to already be there a few houses away at my place and picked the guy up. I'm really not sure how he got into my parents' house or how long he had been there. I'm guessing he got in shortly after they left. I do know that he was there the entire time that I was, and THALLY gives me the creeps. I remember that last year I got home after a trip, being out of town for a few days. It was a work thing and I have my own little apartment in the city. After getting back, it was nighttime and I got into my place and started to unpack. I have just one bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and 1.5 bathrooms. Each room has a decent amount of space. I unpacked a few things and then went into my bedroom to continue. Now most of the time my apartment is pretty neat, but I had left for my trip in a bit of a rush. I had been meaning to wash one of the comforters for my bed, and it was lying on the ground in the corner of my bedroom. The other one was on my bed. I just hadn't washed the one yet. As I was in my bedroom, I was taking clothes out of my suitcase. I was putting some in the hamper and some back in my drawers. As I was doing this, I was sure I saw the blanket on the ground in the corner move. I wasn't looking directly at it when it happened, and I stopped what I was doing and focused my attention to it. I was sure that I saw it moving ever so slightly. This was really weird. There was no way that it could move like that on its own. I stared at it for probably a minute or so and it was completely still. I then got up and left the room. I was kind of in disbelief. I paced around in my living room for a few moments. Then I walked back inside my room and looked at the blanket in the corner again. It was completely still and didn't move for the few moments that I looked at it. I left my bedroom again. I was wondering if I had gone crazy. I walked over into my half bathroom, which was at the opposite side of my apartment and near the front door. When I got inside, I shut the door and splashed some cold water on my face. Maybe I was suffering from a lack of sleep, but as I was there in the bathroom, I heard footsteps coming from my bedroom area. I quickly locked the bathroom door. The footsteps went all the way to right outside of the bathroom door. Then somebody tried opening it. I was so glad that I had locked it after the person tried opening the door. I then heard my front door to the apartment open and then shut. Then things were silent. I was still freaking out. I had no idea what was happening. After a few minutes, I left the bathroom and locked the front door to my apartment. I then searched all around to make sure that whoever had been there had actually left. Thankfully, nobody else was inside. I did see that the blanket that had been in the corner of my bedroom on the floor was no longer in the corner the way that it had been. It was spread out in the middle of the room. This happened when I was home alone as a kid. It was the summertime and I was home during summer break. Both of my parents were at work and I think I was about 12 years old. I have an older brother and he went to one of his friends' houses that day. When I was home alone, I would just hang out and do whatever. Usually I would go on the computer that we had and play Minecraft or something like that. It was probably sometime in the early afternoon, and I had been on the computer in the living room for a while. I moved into the kitchen to get something to eat. The kitchen was at the back side of the house, and we lived in a split level. I will also mention that the neighborhood was pretty average and a little bit on the quieter side. It was when I was standing in the kitchen that I saw something out the window. I just barely saw movement at first, but it looked like somebody was walking by. I moved over to another window to see. That's when I saw a man walking to the back side of the house. He was wearing a sort of construction vest and had a hat on. I realized that it must be the meter reader. I remember that they came around every so often to our house. I calmed down almost immediately. I had been a little worried seeing a guy walking into our backyard. He went to the very back side of our house and near one of the basement windows. I went back to finding some food in the kitchen. After I was in the kitchen for a good 5 minutes though, I looked over and noticed that the guy was still there. Usually they would come and go really quick and only be there for like a minute at most. I went back into the living room to go back on the computer, but a short time later I just had the feeling that I should get up and make sure that the man was now gone. Maybe it was because I was home alone and a kid, so I was a little bit paranoid. I carefully walked back over to the window and could see that the man was actually still there. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't tell exactly what he was doing because I could only see part of him from the angle that I was at, which was higher up than he was. He seemed to be doing something and was near the basement window, but I couldn't tell what exactly he was doing. I thought about going downstairs and looking out at that window, but I knew that the man would see me right away if I did. I went to walk over to another window upstairs, which would have a better angle, but I had to be careful so the guy wouldn't see me. Unfortunately, I really messed up. As I was walking over, I accidentally hit a can that was near the edge of a counter in the kitchen. I knocked it over and it fell onto the ground. This made a loud noise, and the next thing I knew I saw the man quickly walking away. He moved back to the side of the house. I moved to the front of the house and I watched the man casually walking down the street until I could no longer see him. I felt like he was really suspicious. I questioned whether he was even a meter reader or not. Why would he leave so suddenly like that? For the most part though, I was just happy that he was now gone. I went back to the computer. I stayed there for the most part until my brother and parents came back home. When they did, I didn't even think to tell them about the guy that had been there. I thought he was gone for good. My brother's bedroom, as well as mine, happened to be in the basement, and my parents' bedroom was upstairs because it was summertime. We would stay up pretty much as late as we wanted. I remember that on this night, my parents went to bed and my brother went down to his bedroom. I stayed up and was on the computer. All of the lights in the house were off, except for a small lamp in the living room near me. I stayed up on the computer until I got really tired, which was probably at about 1 a.m. Then I turned off the lamp and went downstairs to go to bed. When I got downstairs, I had to walk past a little living room that was in the basement in order to get to my bedroom. As I was walking past, I happened to see something in the window. The man was back. I could only see a figure of a man, but I could guess who it was. This was the same window that he had been at earlier in the day. I then heard noises coming from the window as if it was going to come open. I was suddenly really afraid. It was really dark down there and I hit the light switch, which I happened to be really close to when this happened. It lit up the whole room and I could no longer see the man very well. I heard some noise from right outside the window, though, and then it sounded like he was running away. I went running as well, but back upstairs into my parents' bedroom. I knocked on their door and yelled for them to wake up. About a minute later, my dad came out asking what was going on. By the time I explained it all, the man was long gone. My dad went out and inspected the house all around, though he was able to find at the back window. The man kept messing with it quite a bit of damage. It had almost came off. It was like the man had been trying to remove the window and get inside the house, and he was really close to succeeding. After that night, though, the man never came back. I remember being really scared for a while that he would, and I slept upstairs on the couch because I felt safer there. Luckily, he never did,